I really don't want to say you got to spend money to make money.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
So now you've done your revenue and you've figured out the total amount of money you might make each year. The big goal is to make your costs, surprise, surprise, less than your revenue. If there's one cost you've forgotten about that pushes the costs higher than the amount of money coming in, you're suddenly in the business of losing money. Now later on, we're going to do like fancy spreadsheets with lots of maths so that you can sound fancy to your accountants. But for now, we just want to learn a few key terms and figure out our main basic costs. A nice way to think about costs is just like imagine that the business has been running successfully for a year or two and you walk into your office first thing in the morning. You turn on the lights, so you've got to pay for utilities. You say hello to an employee, that's a wage. And at the end of the workday, you go home and you eat dinner. So you have a wage so you can pay for dinner. We've got to think about all of the money that we spend for the business to exist. The first thing you'll have spent money on is capital expenditure, or CapEx. And this is stuff that you need to buy or steal to start the business at all. So this might be bond for the place that you're renting. It might be a big bit of machinery. It might be legal costs to start the company in the first place. Don't worry about how much this stuff costs, just write down like the big ticket items. After capital, look at your fixed costs. And these are costs that are fixed and you got to pay them every single year. For example, the utilities to keep the lights on and the water flowing, people's wages, including your own wage, or an advertising budget that you're going to spend every year, or rent. And then lastly, think about variable costs. Variable costs are a bit weird. Think about them as money you have to spend when you sell units of whatever you're selling. So it's stuff that's used up to create your product. So that might be coffee and milk for making a coffee, or it might be raw materials for making a product. At this point, most people are like, that's on my costs, awesome. Except, profit is a cost. Profit goes out of the business every year, which means that it's money taken out, it's a cost. Even if you're not motivated by it, it's an important safety net against having like a bad month. You could have a big tax bill and have that one customer not pay you, and suddenly cash flow disappears and the business collapses. Alternatively, profit is how you value the business should you want to sell it or get investment later on. A higher profit margin means that the business is healthier and other people will value it higher. Even if you're a non-profit entity, we still want profit, we just call it surplus. It's extra money at the end of the year that we can use to run the organization. So consider adding profit or profit share as a cost, and also your own wage. One of the reasons people don't put their own wage in is they're thinking about their new business as a passion project. And it's like, well, I still work at the cafe, so I don't need money from here. But what if it works and you need to work on it full time for it to keep going? What kind of wage would you like to be paid to work on this full time? And then once you've done that, think, if it works really well and you have to move on, what kind of wage could you pay somebody else to do your job? Give this a good 5-10 minutes. If you're in a team, get everybody to just brain dump all of their ideas, because you don't want to forget a really important cost and not factor that into the model. If you want to flesh this out just a little bit more, then you can put percentages next to each of those line items. And the fun thing about thinking in percentages is that you can really show like the style and character of the business in where you proportion your money out. For example, a really high CapEx company, a company that needs a lot of money to like manufacture a physical product, might start out as like a crowd-funded business, because you need a lot of money to pay for the manufacturing. Whereas if you're launching a company that's got really high fixed costs, where like the majority is the wage costs, like a design firm or a building company, then you make lots of money when you've got lots of busy workers, and you lose a lot of money if your workers have no work. So you'd want to launch a company with lots of customers already. This is really common for like mid-career entrepreneurs who take all of their networks that they've built and then figure out how to sell them all something. Whereas a company with really high variable costs kind of only costs you money when it works. Good example of this is a dropship company. A dropship company is where it's just like somebody sitting behind a computer running a website, and they buy products from somewhere and ship them directly to their customers without ever seeing the product. Your capex for that business is like your laptop. Your fixed costs are however many hours you spend on the business. So you could be doing it after hours or on the weekend. And then your variable costs fluctuate only when you have customers buying products. This makes it really good to start as like a side hustle on your weekends or after hours, with the hope that it'll then grow and you can quit your job. So this doesn't need to be complicated. You've just got this cake of costs. We've got the capital to make the thing exist. We've got the fixed costs that we keep having to pay, including your wage, because you put that in. Then we've got the variable costs that get used up when we do what we're doing. And then we've got that cream on top, which is profit. About 10 years ago, my mate Luke and I started a company, writing code together. And in the first month, we rented the most horrible, drafty, cold, dusty, terrible office you could possibly think of. And on the first day, we bought a coffee machine with the entire deposit from that first customer. The theory was, the coffee machine was worth it because coffee would make us work faster. We bought a coffee machine we couldn't afford because it was that important to us to write good code. You can see the character of the company. And 10 years later, that company is still providing coffee and lunch for all its employees, in the knowledge that that expense is a cost that describes how we want to run our company. So your job as a founder is not to keep your costs low. It's your job to spend the right money in the right place. It's to spend money to create value that matches your values. And you put a dollar figure on it so you don't run out of money.